Would you guys like to know how many seller finance notes are created every year and where they're located? Stay tuned. Welcome to NoteSchool TV, where we go live every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. We're here to share great content with you guys, and you guys are here to share with us as well. As you have come to expect from NoteSchool TV, we have two amazing guests today, and basically they're going to blow your mind about the seller finance space. So, as we get started, I want to make sure that you guys like the content, right? Share that with us as well, and subscribe, right? And then hit that bell notification so that you will know when we go live every week. All right, and now the news.
Wait a minute, Joe. How many billions of dollars worth of seller finance notes are created every year?
Eddie, you're going to have to do just like everybody else, and you're going to have to wait till we introduce our guests.
Okay, I can't wait.
Well, as we have come to learn over the past several months, well, the news is always interesting. And to start today, Fannie Mae, one of the giant government-sponsored enterprises, has said that mortgage rate and home prices will rise in 2022. Economists expect mortgage rates to rise 3.3% and home prices to rise 7.4% in 2022. So it's all to do with inflation. It's all to do with what's going on out there in the world. And inflation, by the way, in 2021 is expected to end up about 5.7%. And in 2022, it'll be a little bit lower at 5.4%, but high energy prices, and domestic and abroad, and all of the other rise in prices have a big factor on that as well. Now, if we look at one of the Wall Street giants, Goldman Sachs, they say home prices will rise another 16% in 2022. 16% over a 16+ % rise in 2021. God help us, right? Although inventory has been slow and increasing the past few months, it is still below pre-pandemic levels, and home building industry has not been able to fill the void. Construction employment still down 201,000 jobs, and some of the municipalities are looking at, they're looking at going a little more slack on zoning laws and regulations. So more to come on that. We certainly are living in interesting times. So I want to bring on our Chief Visionary Officer, as well as, our founder of NoteSchool, Mr. Eddie Speed. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Well, I've already seen you.
I know you have.
But you brought up a good question. And
I did.
I think the audience is going to want an answer to it. And our guest today, guest as in plural, they're going to talk about some amazing data that they pull together that has taken quite a view of the production level of seller financing. And I think, Joe, our audience is going to be quite surprised. I'll bet you they don't want to leave right now. What do you think?
Well, they certainly do not want to leave because, well, I know that Miss Tracy here, she spends a lot of time during the year putting this data together. And I, for one, I look forward to it about this time every year. So, yeah, no, you certainly want to stay tuned for this.
All right. Well, we have some amazing guests. Joe, I'm going to bring them on. I am really, really excited. I would say literally in the industry, I probably have never had a guest that I've known longer than I've known these guys. And just have had a long way down the trail with them in a lot of different aspects. We've seen many moons in the industry together, right?
Yes, it has been. And we both longtime friends of both Fred and Tracy. They're amazing people. And man, I can't wait to hear what they have to say.
If I read their resume, it would take the whole show. So let me just simply say that Fred and Tracy Rewey are long-term industry experts. We have done business on all sides of the thing. I've sold loans to them when they were executives at the top note buyer in the country back in the 90s, and they have been independent business owners and real estate and note entrepreneurs for a long time. Very skilled presenters, trainers, and just great friends. They've won more industry awards than anybody I know. So I can't say enough about them. You guys welcome Fred and Tracy Rewey.
Well, thank you. I don't know how we live up to all that now. I mean, the pressure's on.
It's just the truth. It's
Well,
just
thanks.
the truth.
We feel the same way about you guys, the Mutual Admiration Society, right? So thanks for having us on. Yeah, we've known you since, we've known each other since '88, I think, Eddie. So
that's about right.
yeah.
Long time.
When people still like each other and do business together for that many years, then
that's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
Or marry them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's right. I knew Fred and Tracy before they were married.
That's
so.
right. That's right.
Yeah. So we're excited about the stats. I mean, you act surprised. I know you know these numbers because we've often had conversations of how the seller financed part of our industry is often overlooked and underutilized. And sometimes I don't know how much we should tell people that because maybe we like to keep the good news to ourselves, right? But I think the numbers really drive that home. So it's always fun to share them.
Well, as you guys know, I'm very big in understanding voids in the market and inventory. A lot of that I do and helping real estate investors in a lot of different markets is you got to understand what the voids are.
Yeah.
Now, when you saw the news and, that housing prices are going to rise and all these things like that, I hope all that's true. There are some dark clouds in the market. And obviously at Note Expo, we're not going to poo-poo the market. We're just going to make sure everybody is aware of all the variables in the market. We bring a lot of experts in that area, but we're going to talk about Note Expo at the end of the show today. Today, I first want you guys to open up. You have a killer presentation on the amount of seller financing that is created every year. And I want you to pull that up, bring those slides up, and you guys go through that. I won't interrupt you. I want to just watch it because I'm very intrigued at all the information you've gathered and what it really tells us about a niche market that's a lot bigger than people think.
So these are the numbers. We alluded to it earlier. I don't know if we unveiled it, but it's funny. These are giant numbers, obviously. 23.5 billion in 2020 alone. Last 5 years?
116.6 billion.
Right.
And this is seller financed, people. This is where the seller sold the property, allowed the buyer to make payments to them over time.
Yeah. And I think we shouldn't be surprised at the numbers, but we always are. Like, they're always bigger than I think. But if you think about it, roughly, 6% plus or minus, depending on the year, of real estate transactions involve some sort of owner carryback financing. And you think, 6%, that's real small. But think of the volume of real estate transaction. I don't need a big piece of that pie. And obviously this is about what it ends up being.
And a lot of people think, well, there's no seller financing right now because the real estate markets are hot, right? So, but there still is seller financing happening. So where is that market taking place and how do we tap into it? Because it is one form of notes. This slide just shows that it's not a fluke, right? It just shows over the last 5 years how we got to that 116.6 billion in the past 5 years of inventory that's out there. The next slide actually shows it based on the last decade of seller financing usage. So it's no surprise here that after the 2008-2010 subprime meltdown, there was a lot more seller financing. We saw the 2013 to 2015, it really topped out. Then it came back down and sort of evened out. We've been kind of pretty even for the last 4 or 5 years on the seller financing count. So this looks at it by counts and also by dollars.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's a mistake is that people tend to think hey, interest rates are low. people are working, that, everybody qualifies. And honestly, if interest rates now, like right around 3.2 is the expectation or whatever like that, more people don't qualify at 3 than they did at 7 or 10. So everybody thinks, oh, interest rates are low, money's cheap. Yeah, money's cheap if you're able to get that money, but it's not any more attainable for other people. It's not like they relaxed the guidelines for people that didn't qualify before. So that's why our industry, despite what happens interest-wise, we do better. Now, do we do better in a high interest rate environment? Absolutely. When interest rates start pushing 10, 11, 12,
or
softer real estate market, obviously we do a little bit better. But you can see by this, we tend to stay, whichever the way the market goes, there's money on the table.
What's interesting about these numbers is they come from Advanced Seller Data Services, and it's based on average loan value of $30,000 or less. So it's only first position. So it doesn't even, $30,000 or more.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take into account the ones that are under 30,000, and it's also first position. It doesn't take into second position. So it's only what's recorded of public record. So if you talk about unrecorded transactions like contract for deeds, sometimes those aren't even in the number. So these are actually a smaller version of really what's out there. So this slide looks at it based on the property type, because it's not just residential.
Yeah, so this is a breakdown by property type, and it's the average loan to value and the note amount. So when you look at residential, you're looking at the average being 82, or the average loan amount being $180,000.
I think a lot of people think all seller financing is zero down, but we can see from this an average 82% loan to value, meaning they almost put 20% down on most of these seller finance transactions. And it makes sense that commercial transactions have a bigger down payment. They're about a 75% loan to value. Same with land, about a 76% loan to value. And their numbers are higher. So average commercial note that was seller finance was about $423K. And the average land note that was seller finance was about $449K. There's a lot of land finance that's much lower and much smaller than that. But we can see there's some big chunks of land that it's being sold with seller financing, probably kind of skewing those numbers a little bit. So
and commercial going up in a year when everybody's like, oh, everybody's getting away from commercial is odd in its own right.
So it's just interesting to look at the stats. And the next slide that we'll take a peek at, I always find this interesting. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of mom and pop, what we call mom and pop seller financiers, meaning they sell one property and take back one note. And then there's another contingency that take back more than 2 notes. Now we look at 2 to 3 notes and over 4 notes. And we can see that the number are growing, especially in that 4 or more notes a year or 12 months, that number went from 5 to 9% last year from 2019 to 2020. So we're seeing more people becoming familiar with how to seller finance and using it as a business strategy. Sometimes I know Eddie's big on talking about the burnout landlords, the tired landlords. We're seeing a bigger number of those converting some of their portfolio, instead of having tenants, having owners and using seller financing. And that's one of the areas we think this stat is why it's increasing. And the next one we're going to take a peek at is just a kind of a graph of those multi-note creators over the last 5 or 6 years. Just kind of see, they kind of bump around up and down a little bit, but they tend to be in between that 15 to 20%.
Yeah, and it's not insignificant to say in 2020, they were nearly 20% of notes created have more than one note. That's a significant market when you start talking about, 1/5 of it.
Yeah, you really do. And then we'll take a look at the next one, and that is always surprising, but there are 10 states in the United States that make up 70% of the volume, and the remaining 40 states make up 30% of the volume. So all 50 states can have seller financing, but no surprise, your guys' home state of Texas, Eddie's home state of Texas now, is number 1, and has been number 1 for all the years that we track these stats. And where we live currently, Florida number 2, and you can take a look at these slides, download them to see.
And Florida is roughly half of what Texas is. Of course, Texas, the argument can be made, obviously it's a big state. It's a big state. I mean, we've all seen the Alaska map. We know you guys are big. So obviously there's going to be more notes created just by land mass alone, but there also have to be open to creating notes.
Yeah. And there's a lot of activity in Texas. There always has been for seller financing. They have a good system down for it. And they have a lot of markets that are served well and sometimes underserved by traditional conventional financing. That seller financing really fits the bill. And other states, like people are always surprised about, California comes in at number 3. We can see that we've got others in there.
And Arizona's still strong. 4. Arizona's always been strong.
North Carolina, Georgia, Oregon, Washington, New York. So all 50 states, if you download that, you can see where your state might come in, but all 50 states have it, but there's definitely 10 states that make up 70% of the volume. And that's the end of our slides. So
that's
Eddie,
the quick one.
That's the quick version. We've got the extended version, but Eddie, it's always fun to talk about them back and forth because, you reside in Texas. It's always been #1 for seller financing production.
Well, seller financing, I have discovered over the years, and you guys obviously have seen it. It's really, it's people copy somebody else. And so seller financing is a more common language in Texas. And at Note Expo, my keynote is going to be, where is the future inventory of seller financing in the next 5 years and why? And so I'm going to look forward based on 40 years experience. I'm going to look forward at the most likely candidate to carry seller financing and why he is highly motivated to carry seller financing. Hint, hint, tax advantage.
Yeah. That's good.
And so, we are, as you guys know, I do a lot of training with high volume real estate investors, and they're trending in this area with some sales messaging that they've never really used before. And so we're going to talk about that at Note Expo. By the way, guys, these slides, a PDF of these slides is available in our show notes. Let me absolutely encourage you that I spent 20 minutes this morning just looking at this data. And it is very valuable. And I know they went through it really quickly. And thank you guys for doing that. But I want you guys to download these slides and just make sure you do it. And there's some contact information on there for Fred and Tracy. And you guys ought to do that. But before we move on, I want to have a word from our sponsor. And that is going to be Note Expo. And when we come back, Fred and Tracy, we are going to talk about Note Expo.
See you at the next Note Expo.
See you at the next Note Expo.
Hi, everybody. I hope to see all of you next year at the Note Expo.
See you next year.
See you at the next Note Expo.
See you at the next Note Expo.
See you at the next Note Expo.
I had a great time, and I will be back next year. See you at the next Note Expo.
Hey, see you at the next Note Expo.
See you next year at Note Expo.
See you at the next Note Expo.
It's been a fantastic expo. See you next year.
See you at the next Note Expo. I already bought my tickets. Have you?
It's a thing, guys. We're back, and it's going to be live.
Yeah.
We are excited.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We really are.
No single event for me that I enjoy doing every year more than Note Expo. I see friends like Fred and Tracy that I've known for decades, and I meet brand new people that I've never met before, and just the camaraderie and all that. And Fred and Tracy, we want to talk a little bit about just, you've been to many trade shows for a long time, and just talk about why the industry needs something like Note Expo and what you get out of it.
I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, the short list for me is that I don't think I've ever been to an event. And like you said, we've been to, I don't know, hundreds of them by now. I've never been to an event that I don't pick up a couple good ideas. And sometimes it's an idea I forgot that all of a sudden is back working for somebody. And sometimes it's a completely new idea. Also, you always network, you meet somebody, that you may have been seeing for years and years, but now you realize you have something to work on together. You can't replace, even if you're not that person that is, on stage, or that person that's walking, even if you're just sitting around at a cocktail hour or whatever, and you're listening to other people talk and you're not even participating, but you're just a guest there listening, and you absorb a lot of information for yourself. And then sometimes for your spouse, if you bring your spouse, it's like it becomes real to them all of a sudden, when it's not this imaginary thing you're talking about online, or you're watching videos online, but it's there. You can see it. And it's nice that coming out of the COVID stuff, we're able to do that. I mean, a lot of people have been vaccinated and can travel and do those sort of things now. So it's nice to kind of get back to normal as much as we can and have events like this.
Yeah, we all have to put on pants, of course. But besides that, there's no downside to having in-life.
Wait, what?
So, I mean, look, we've all done what we needed to do with Zoom and that sort of thing. But what we really miss is that connection that we have with people, because you do a different level of business when you can sit down and meet with people one-on-one. And so we're real excited to be back at Note Expo, and it's always top notch every year.
Well, we're so glad that you guys are coming and are going to speak and share your knowledge and wisdom. We put a lot of energy into who we invite on stage. We've all been to other trade shows, and we're like, we've all had that look like, oh my God, how'd they put him on stage, right? That kind of thing, right? And it means something because, people that come that, as Fred said, they're looking for a new idea and what's real and what's really happening in the market. And I've never been more excited about the agenda than this year. And, this sounds a little markety, Fred. This sounds a little markety, but I believe the next 5 years in the note business are going to be a game changer. And I'm going to give you a hint. There are 17 million small-time landlords, 17 million houses, 50% of them are owned free and clear. And their number one objection to selling their rental is taxation.
Yeah.
And so there is a strategy that somebody can utilize in selling their rental that most small-time landlords would never know. And so those are the kind of things we're going to talk about at Note Expo, non-performing notes. I mean, there's about 4.5 million loans that aren't paying, but only 1.1 million of those are in forbearance. The rest of them are just delinquent. So there's a huge influx of non-performing. A lot of things like that we're going to talk about in detail. And I want to talk a little bit about relationships, Fred and Tracy. You guys have championed in the industry, doing so well at networking and relationships. And so, Fred, you first. When you go to a trade show, talk about engagement a little bit. Like what's the best way for somebody to really go to the trade show and get the most out of it?
Well, I think that obviously you watch the sessions, and I think that if you're one of those people that are a little bit shy or whatever, the vendors are there to talk to you right out of the gate. So they can't go anywhere. They're right behind their table, so you can walk up and go, "Hey, tell me a little bit about what it is that you're doing," even if you don't know, if you can't even tell what it is. I look at the event. Note Expo for me is an accelerant. So whatever path you're currently on or wanting to go on, this is what kind of jumps you to the next level. And you brought up a very good point talking about stuff that's going to happen down the line. The people that aren't going to hear about at Note Expo are going to hear about those key metrics a year from now, 18 months from now, when guess what? The people that are there have already, implemented their plans. So back to your question on that is that, you see a speaker, you go up and just, see that speaker at the cocktail party and say, "Hey, I really enjoyed your speech. Can I ask you a question about this, whatever?" And then you're in. And then you're learning and doing things like that. Even for me, that believe it or not, I'm actually more introvert than not, more than Tracy, especially as I get older. I'm going to turn into that grumpy old guy that just is, get off my lawn. I don't know, but I mean, there's always something to learn or talk about. And it's an interesting industry. I don't know a lot of industries where you go to a networking event and everybody is so open. They want to talk about what it is they do. I never feel like I'm in competition with anybody. I never feel like, there's plenty to go around. We've seen the numbers. I mean, there's plenty of deals to go around. There's plenty of creativity.
I would have to second that. I really like how the capital marketplace is set up at Note Expo. So as an exhibitor or a vendor, all the breakouts where you have coffee or lunch or cocktail parties are right there in that capital marketplace. So number one, everybody tends to be there. And as Fred mentioned, that includes speakers. So this is your opportunity to truly get to talk with them and meet them. And you find that people don't just speak or leave the session. They actually stay there. And I mean, where else can you talk about financial calculator, HP12C, and note investing, right? So it's your chance to talk to everybody about that information. And you'll find that people are very open and welcome and sharing information.
That's great. Well, Joe, I'm going to invite you back in. You have known Fred and Tracy a long time as well. And I want to make sure that I leave a little window so that you can do a couple of follow-ups here.
Well, the first thing I have to say is I'm really kind of disappointed now that I am going to have to put on pants, right? Not going to, have the dress shirt.
I've done the same thing.
I should have never said that.
I'm not even sure that's a real rule. I'm looking this up before I get on a plane.
Hey, Fred, why don't you and I just show up in, shorts and, in a shirt, and, that'll be our daily thing, right?
That's right.
Well, that's Florida issue.
Yeah, that's Florida. Yeah, that's standard. I mean,
that's right. Our loafers and, so yeah, we're cool, right?
I think if I walk up without a blazer on, Bob Repass is just going to corner me immediately. Yeah, I did a keynote once in a t-shirt, and I think that threw him off. I didn't take off the jacket. I was too worried about it.
Well, Bob is Bob, right? And we love him. But you have to come. Guys, it's like Tracy and Fred and Eddie said, it's that interaction. It's getting out there. And when you said, Fred, that, you getting this information next year or later next year, everybody else is going to, they're at the gate and they're going to come out running. So they'll have a clear vision and a clear path in 2022. And that's what we're all looking for, right? And I do have to say, one of the other things, we go back to the seller financing. Guys, seller financing is huge. And Eddie, we always talk about, and you guys, it has really bailed a lot of folks out in some crazy times. And yeah, the news says everything's going up, but there's that side of the market. And then there's the other side of the market with the non-performing as well. So I like what you said, Fred. And that is, money is cheap if you can get it, right? If you can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where it is. So,
and notes have served us well in all markets, right? We've been at this a few years, so over 3 decades, and in all markets, notes have served us well. So they do good in up times and down times. You just have to approach the market different. So by being at Note Expo, you'll know how to position yourself to approach that market.
Yeah, because when in the 80s, I remember John Richards telling me that, who taught me the business. He says, "Look, this business." Whether the economy is going good or bad, it's just opposite sides of the coin. You just shift gears, but you're always making money in the note business. And I thought, oh yeah, that sounds really good. That's a good sales thing. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm a lot older now to have seen that, and decades have gone on. But it's true. I mean, you just pivot, and like the stuff that Eddie's talking about, which I'm actually, by the way, I'm super curious now because now I want to see some of the stuff and where we're going on some of it. But that's the kind of stuff you get in events, just little things like that. And I think one other thing I wanted to say about people that are on the fence about going or trying to decide and stuff like that, or maybe they haven't bought their first deal yet. One thing I find interesting about this industry is that, we're always finding new and creative ways to do things, but the essence of the industry has been the same for decades and decades and decades. I mean, you're not reinventing the wheel, so you don't have to be the super creative brainiac on a calculator or marketing person. I mean, people have already done it. We've already gone down that path. So you really just have to follow them. And that's what works out really good at these live events, is the ability to meet those people that, maybe they're not an official mentor or whatever, but there's somebody you can call and go, hey, I got a question on that. And that's what we're all there for. Because we're kind of really, Tracy has a big speech on this she's giving pretty soon, but we're kind of all at the give back part of our lives too. We've lived all over the world and never missed a beat on our note business. So we love sharing information, and we're glad, buy me a cup of coffee and I'll talk forever.
I'd like a glass of wine, please.
Okay. Starbucks does not do wine at 5 a.m. I'm just telling you. 5 p.m.
Well, it depends on, when you start your day. Guys, thank you so much. And I know that all of you are, we've had a lot of folks come into the industry, guys, over the last 20 months, right? And they haven't been able to see that camaraderie and the relationship and, the family, not to get all corny on all of that, but it'll really change your perspective as far as what the note business is all about. And man, we can't wait to see you guys. It's about 2 weeks away. So, and these are the type guys that you're going to see there on stage at Note Expo Live. So thanks so much, Tracy, Fred, for being with us today. It's always a treat. Can't wait to see you guys. And I'll wrap it up with, if you guys would like more information about what we do at NoteSchool or would like to go to one of our NoteSchool classes, guys, just simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV, and check us out, right? We look forward to seeing you at Note Expo and at a one-day class very soon. And guys, we will see you next week on another episode of NoteSchool TV at 11:05 Central Time. See you on the other side.